Matthew, friend of two-way, and a student of politics, not a journalist, student of politics, went on Twitter and tweeted something. There's a few Democrats quoted on the record, although it's kind of like psych background, like they're not, most of them are not in an interview with, but it's like scenic. And there's a few quoted in there who are now trying to be heroes. They're now trying to say, I saw it and I was very troubled by it. Matthew, we'll put up the graphics as you talk. Tell us the story of one particular member.
Yeah, New Hampshire Representative Annie Kuster. She was the chair of the New Democrats. Kind of jumped off the page when I read it. How she is at this star-studded fundraiser with Biden, and I believe Obama is there too.
Yeah.
And she says, he doesn't look like he knows where he's supposed to go. She had been with him in the photo line. It was a struggle for the president to engage. It reminded her of being with an aging grandparent.
Here's her quote in the book. She'd already reached the conclusion that there was no scenario in which Biden would be reelected. She turned to Brownlee, her colleague. We can't go out there and campaign for 4 more years, she said. That's just not tenable. So that's what she says to the authors about how she was feeling about Joe Biden in real time while he was still a candidate before the debate. And now what happens next, Matthew? Or what happens? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously we have the disastrous debate between Trump and Biden, and she immediately puts out a tweet. Tonight was clear. Tonight's debate between President Biden and former President Trump presented two starkly different visions for our country. President Biden laid out his vision, publicly affirming.
Right. So
the preamble.
Just as we're not holding Jake Tapper or whatever his name is singularly responsible for the media's hypocrisy and failure, he's one of many. Here's a member of Congress who wants to be a hero in the book for saying, I knew well before the debate that this was a disaster. And then after the debate, she's there saying what a great job Biden did.
So compounded by the fact that, again, Annie Kuster led the write-in Biden efforts during the New Hampshire primary, affirming his support, fending off a challenge. I don't believe it's ever been reported. A prominent U.S. senator outside of New Hampshire deliberately tried to interfere with Dean Phillips' campaign during that primary. So she led the Biden write-in campaign. She then chose not to run for re-election. And who took her seat? Maggie Goodlander, someone who had access with her husband to the president, access to President Biden. Not once during that campaign was Maggie Goodlander asked about the competency of Joe Biden, even while this was going on. People in New Hampshire were asking the press to do something, crickets. So, all of this was on the background, of a party that then changed their mantra that was country over party, just compounding the hypocrisy. You quote the Doobie Brothers, right? I ain't blind. This don't look right to me.
Yeah. Matthew's not a journalist. All Matthew did was look at the book and find what this congresswoman told the authors she thought before the debate, and then he found her statement on Twitter. Like, again, is it the most important story in the world? And I say, for those who think we shouldn't be talking about this, we should be talking about Donald Trump and the plane or Don Jr.'s business. The reason why the media does not have the credibility we need on those issues to hold Trump accountable is because of this.
Not just the media,
not only this.
It's why Democrats have a credibility problem.
Correct.
I mean, what is not, and the reason I said that members of Congress need to be held accountable, the party, if you looked at polls in 2022 and early 2023, Democratic primary polls, 75% on average, sometimes upper 60s, sometimes low 80s, of Democrats thought Biden was too old to run. The people were saying what their eyes saw, this isn't right. Who protected Joe Biden to kind of ramp up a primary and be the nominee? It was the elite. It was the members of Congress and the kind of infrastructure in Washington, D.C. that said, he's the only one who can beat him. Harris is a disaster. No one else has the gravitas. We have to just put our heads down and grind this out. They thought that the mechanics of the party would lift him literally kind of off the ground over the finish line, and then we'll worry about it the day after. And so they all need to be held accountable. They all knew, which is why in interviews, they're all like, we need to look forward. It was such an openly discussed conversation in Washington, D.C. Everybody had examples in their own interactions. Everybody knew it. And they just said, we can't talk about, we can't go public with this. So, You have to be held accountable. The media has to be held accountable. We should pay a price for it. It was terrible.
All right.
But you know what? I'll put a pin
yeah,
in this
go ahead.
by just saying this. There's a through line from what we've been discussing today. It's what they won't. I mean, think about this: the laptop being suppressed, the not covering of his speech yesterday, the cover up of this. It is a continued. It's not just one example, right? We've got to remember that this is a continued pattern from these folks. What they will cover and what they won't, and that's why I go back to everything that the White House is doing to bring new voices in, because this attempt by the left wing legacy media to manipulate what we see, read, and hear cannot be overstated. This is not a singular event. It is a continued through line in what they cover and what they don't, and how they feed us our news.
Well, and how they then tried to destroy people, because there is a Democrat, and I won't say his name, I don't know if I should, who has been on this program before, who they tried to destroy his life for speaking out the truth. And by the way, he was 100% correct. 100%.
I mean,
And also, but think about this. I mean, the idea that one of the authors was one of the biggest offenders at this cover up and is now seeking to profit from it is mind blowing. The idea that his own colleagues are complicit in this and allowing it. No one's calling it out. It's right there and saying you were one of the people that chastised people for calling it out, and now you are profiting from this. Give me a break.
That was a delicious video experience. I think you'll agree. Now, what you need to do in return for getting to enjoy that is hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss a thing.